Did you know that electric cars were popular as far back as the beginning of the last century, and that their production and use are no more environmentally friendly than their gasoline counterparts? Today, I will tell you shocking facts about electric cars, and in the end, you will learn all the drawbacks of owning such vehicles. Enjoy watching. I would like to start my story with a brief journey into history. The thing is, electric cars have been popular for quite some time, and moreover, those were the times when the most popular car was the Ford Model T with an internal combustion engine. And mind you, this was the beginning of the 20th century. Why were they popular then? It's all about the convenience of their use. As you may know, the first cars were started with a crank starter, a simple stick used to crank the engine to start it. It was heavy, inconvenient, and even dangerous to health. So all wealthy people, especially their loved ones, preferred to use electric cars. Well, their popularity sharply declined when the familiar electric starter was finally invented. By the way, another important fact, back in those days, there were hardly any places to charge cars. But with internal combustion engines, everything was simpler and cheaper. Today, fuel prices have significantly increased. Now it's very problematic to maintain a car because a large part of the budget goes to fuel. And also, in our time, various minorities are extremely popular. The government pays more and more attention not to the majority of the inhabitants of their country, but on the contrary, cater to everyone. All because of cancel culture. Because literally one wrong step for large companies can cost millions of dollars. Because people simply stop using their services and products. On top of these facts lies the general fear of global warming, ecology, and a bunch of other issues that theoretically should be solved if people stop using internal combustion engine cars. However, this opinion has many contradictions, and I'll tell you about it today, albeit a little later. Armchair ecologists cite as an example that internal combustion engines emit a lot of carbon dioxide and other not very useful substances into the atmosphere. But an electric car doesn't do that because nothing burns in it at all. Isn't that a miracle, right? Well, there's one big but here. The thing is, it takes about 7 ounces of coal to produce 1 kilowatt-hour of electricity. After all, most power plants in our world are coal-fired. And there are also nuclear ones, which also don't appeal to ecologists because of the events in Chernobyl. Hydroelectric power stations disrupt riverbeds, thereby changing their entire ecology and destroying millions of aquatic inhabitants. And solar panels and wind turbines are too low-powered to provide humanity with electricity. In general, each method of electricity generation has a huge heap of ecological issues that also need to be addressed. And now calculate that Tesla spends approximately 20 kilowatts per hour for 6 to 7 miles of travel. That is, a minimum of 6 pounds of coal is burned for a cutting-edge electric car to travel such a short distance. Meanwhile, small cars burn 1 gallon of gasoline. Burning 2 pounds of coal emits about 6 pounds of carbon dioxide, while a liter of gasoline emits only 5 pounds. And then we open the calculator and are surprised. The thing is, the small car will emit about 26 pounds of carbon dioxide, while Tesla emits only 20. Sounds quite justified. However, the numbers are far from as rosy as the manufacturers assure. And now, imagine that with an increase in the number of electric cars, the production of electricity will also increase. They need to be powered by something. This means that emission from each power station will increase. And also, if you didn't know, power plants do not always produce the same amount of energy. They operate by the hour, increasing capacity at peak consumption hours and decreasing, for example, at night, when everyone is asleep. And when do electric cars, for the most part, charge? Right? At night. After all, they cannot be refueled in a couple of minutes like gasoline. So, at the moment when cars are not being used, they will be charging. Consequently, at times when electricity consumption was low, with electric cars, it will be the opposite. Even more emissions, which, moreover, are not dispersed throughout the city, but are collected in one place, which is even worse. Another important question: what to do with the acid used in batteries after their service life expires? It cannot be reused. Chemical reactions will have to be carried out with emissions of harmful substances, which also harm the environment. And what if an electric car gets into an accident? Will the acid just spill into the environment? Well, yes, or there will be a very powerful fire, as often happens. In general, there are really a lot of downsides. so I find it strange why they are becoming so popular. In light of these problems, the famous Japanese company Toyota has abandoned the production of electric cars. One of the main problems that the company encountered was the purchase of batteries for such cars. They are produced in very small quantities and they are expensive, which means that the cars will ultimately become much more expensive. This, by the way, is very noticeable because any electric car is significantly more expensive than its internal combustion engine counterpart. And no matter what Elon Musk says, they are not going to get cheaper. And also, as I already mentioned, there is a huge problem with disposal. All these issues became fatal for Toyota. Overall, the company still produces electric cars. However, there are very few of them, and they are sold in China, where these cars are very popular. Mostly, the Japanese make hybrids, and this, in my opinion, is the best development option. Just think about it. Manufacturers of such cars combine all the advantages of both technologies: the silence and comfort of driving from electric motors, and the independence from charging thanks to the internal combustion engine. A real miracle. And also, in such cars, battery packs are significantly smaller in size and capacity, which means that fewer emissions are produced during their production, and disposal is easier. Also, many benefits for consumers. You can hardly spend money on gasoline and charge from a socket. And if the charge does run out, the car won't turn into a brick on wheels. Thanks to all these advantages, such cars have gained immense popularity in America. And not only there. I was extremely surprised when I saw that more than half of all car traffic in Georgia is Toyota Prius. Yes, those same hybrids. So apparently, the guys from Japan understand why and what for they are going against modern fashion. But perhaps it is worth returning to the past and delving deeper into this topic. Why did electric cars lose to internal combustion engines? And here it's all, as usual, about the price. The thing is that cars with electric motors, although extremely comfortable, cost a fortune. Only well-off people could afford them, and there was also a huge question of how to charge them. But even this problem could easily be solved by the wealthy. After all, in the past, there was a company that provided car charging services. They picked them up from the owner at the appointed time and place and took them to a special parking lot, where they were serviced, washed, and charged. And in the morning, they returned to the owner in perfect condition. Agree, it sounds very cool, but even this did not save electric cars. As I already mentioned, this type of car disappeared after the electric starter was invented. And here's why it happened. Electric cars in those days, actually like now, had a very limited range, so it was impossible to travel between cities on them. But cars with internal combustion engines could easily refuel somewhere along the way. And the only advantage of electric cars was in their ease of use and the fact that there was no risk of being harmed by a crank starter. Oh yes, there was also a question of fuel. Charging such cars was no cheaper than refueling a Ford Model T with regular moonshine, which was produced by a local farmer. Yes, cars at the beginning of the last century ran on it, so no one was going to buy a less convenient and more expensive car. And why was the price higher? It's the same problem: batteries. Nowadays, the industry has developed very strongly, and in general, demand for energy carriers is satisfied. But then, it was such a problem that it's hard to even imagine how to solve it. That's why all companies were shutting down their electric car production. There was no point in them in those days. Zero. Electric cars have a negative impact on health. How about this headline from a scientific article? Electric cars have a negative impact on human health. Sounds very silly, doesn't it? But let me briefly and clearly explain its content. The scientist who wrote it reported that when electric motors are running, an electromagnetic field is created, which does not have a very good effect on humans. What's more, scientists claim the harm of phones due to these fields. And here, it's thousands, if not millions of times more powerful radiation. As it turns out, the electromagnetic field can affect ongoing chemical reactions in the human body. Because of this, oxygen supply to cells is hindered. Metabolism is disrupted. In general, prolonged driving in an electric car can cause feelings of malaise, drowsiness, and even loss of strength. And, as you can understand, it's very bad for driving. After all, a sleepy driver can cause a terrible accident. Overall, this article in my opinion sounds very absurd and unrealistic. But people didn't believe in the harm of radiation before it was proven otherwise. So I don't rule out the fact that all this could be real. I can't help but address the question of the fire hazard of such vehicles, because such cases will definitely occur, but for some reason, no one talks about how dangerous it is. Imagine two cars crashing, a serious accident, gasoline spreading everywhere. What is needed for it to ignite? That's right, a spark or flame, but pouring water over the area is enough, and then nothing will catch fire. But with a battery, it's different. Even if you take a regular battery and hit it with an axe, such a powerful fire will occur that is just terrifying. The temperature of the flame in those moments is simply colossal. Metal melts easily, not to mention what will happen to a person. And also, the battery fire is very intense. Of course, it's not comparable to gasoline explosions, but still. And it's very difficult to extinguish it, because water won't help here. And what to do in such situations? With cars, there haven't been too many such cases. But what about the high-profile incidents with electric scooters? There were cases when apartments burned down because of them, just standing on a charger. And they often catch fire on their own, just out of nowhere. And don't think that all electric cars will be devoid of such problems. And similar incidents will happen regularly due to accidents. Oof, it's all so scary. And the last question, which still remains open to all electric car owners: where to charge them? The thing is, the cars are plugged into the socket for hours, and they take up parking places. Plus, not everywhere there are charging stations. Not to mention driving such a car to another city, although in Europe it's a bit easier with that. And also, in cold conditions, the battery loses about 50% of its capacity. And this means that after charging a bunch of kilowatts as usual, spending money, and as a result getting emissions from power plants, you'll only get half of what you wanted. Not to mention that in winter, such cars often break down because the power chips and everything else simply breaks in the cold. True, if you live in Africa, this won't be a problem for you, because you'll have to think about how to protect the car from unbearable heat, because of which it can catch fire again. In general, there are also problems with operating conditions. Overall, I really hope that all these statements by car manufacturers about electric cars will turn out to be myths, because many say that by 2025 we won't produce internal combustion engines anymore. There will only be environmentally friendly cars. However, our world is absolutely not ready for the operation of such technologies. Yes, maybe electricity is cheaper, but not everywhere. In some European countries, utility bills are sky high, and it's even more profitable to maintain a car with an internal combustion engine. And how many parking spaces with chargers will be needed? If now it's impossible to squeeze through the cities because of cars, and now they need to be equipped with stations. In general, there are plenty of questions, and who and how will solve them for now is unknown. Let's hope that this trend will pass, and we will return to steam cars. Oh, what am I? Spoiled the topic of the new video for you. Well, okay. Today, we thoroughly discussed the topic of electric cars. Write in the comments what you think about those professional marketers who advertise electric cars. By the way, about the pros. Friends, you have the opportunity to join our team. If you have skills in video editing, can voice video in Russian, English, and other languages, or write interesting scripts, we will be happy to work with you. Write to Telegram bot, link in the description. And thank you for watching.